This program is rated PG and may contain mature subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised.
We love our dogs and cats. Our faithful companions are an integral part of our lives.
Well, who doesn't love cats or dogs? And if they don't love cats or dogs, then do you really want to be friends with that person?
They're like a part of the family. They don't ask of anything from us, they just give.
In the wilderness, on the farm, even on the high seas, wherever you find humans, you'll find dogs and cats.
These amazing creatures make our lives more full and more happy.
Aside from just the total and utter joy, they're also very helpful animals.
We've had dogs and cats with us since civilization started. They were our hunting companions. They were our protection.
They sniff out threats, protect us from danger, and help rescue people in need.
Wild cats and dogs are known as apex predators, which means they keep ecosystems functioning.
It's hard to imagine a world without dogs and cats, but that's exactly what we are about to do. We're conducting a thought experiment and removing one by one some of the most important gifts that dogs and cats bring to our lives.
We would really have an epidemic of loneliness.
Dogs and cats have these skills that humans just don't have.
If they suddenly disappeared, a lot of people would be in deep trouble.
This is History Erased. The world without dogs and cats. Dogs and cats exist in homes, fields, and barns across the globe. They are integrated into nearly every aspect of human life.
Come on, ready? Let's go play. Come on, buddy. Come on, buddy.
To better understand how these creatures impact the world, we will follow a group of people in our thought experiment who depend on dogs and cats every day, including those who rely on the unconditional love their pets provide. Today, over 800 million cute and cuddly dogs and cats are kept as pets because of the companionship they afford their owners. But this is a relatively new concept.
200 years ago, it would have been mainly nobility that would have kept cats and dogs in this way. In the 19th century, people's relationship with nature changed and nature started to be seen as less wild and threatening. That's when ordinary, everyday people started to keep cats and dogs as pets.
Animal ownership and companionship started to be a lot more important to everyday people and not just the rich and the highborn.
One famous pet owner, American President Abraham Lincoln, named his dog Fido. Lincoln derived the name from the Latin word for trusty and faithful. It has now become a generic name for any dog, and another of Lincoln's many contributions to history. But dogs and cats were at our side long before they shared our homes.
Well, humans and dogs have had a relationship for tens of thousands of years, and it really began with the gray wolf.
Humans and the gray wolf made an unlikely partnership.
As humans started living in larger settlements, they actually started generating a lot more leftovers and trash, and that could be a really tasty food source.
Over a longer period of time, we began breeding these wolves, so they didn't have such big fangs, they had smaller paws, they became more docile.
We bred dogs to become the species and breeds that we see today.
Some believe that the stunning success of the human species is at least partly due to our domestication of the dog.
There is a really interesting theory as to why I'm talking to you and a Neanderthal isn't.
By wolves and early humans partnering together, that gave them possibly an edge over other humanoid species like Neanderthals.
Essentially, having a hunting partner and having a protector made us a little bit more effective.
You can devote more time to having more kids.
If the Neanderthal theory is true, then we really have to thank dogs for modern human beings being around today.
Like dogs, domesticated cats are found across the globe.
Cats have been a big part of history and a big part of human evolution.
You can even see it in our ancient burial grounds.
The earliest evidence of a pet cat was discovered in a gravesite in what is now Cyprus.
It was dated to be around 9,500 years old. The pet cat was buried alongside its owner.
This ancient feline was identified to have the same ancestry that all domestic cats today come from.
They all came from a species called Felis sylvestris, and they all come from the Middle East. It boggles my mind that we can get all these different body types from the same genetic source.
Cats have been around human beings really since the beginning of recorded history, and that's because they were attracted to our agricultural settlements.
The cats that were less aggressive and more friendly to the humans, they got to survive, and they became the cats that we have today.
Cats really took charge of their own destinies and domesticated themselves.
There's a lot to be said about the saying that dogs have family and cats have staff.
Come on.
While our pets rely on us to care for them, they provide many health benefits in return.
You have to take your dog out for a walk. Half an hour of exercise 3 times a week is enough to kind of keep your cardiovascular function working well. We've known that dogs and cats that come up to you and purr and spend time with you, your blood pressure decreases.
For those who don't own a pet, therapy dogs are now used to bring joy and comfort to people in hospitals, senior residences, and community centers.
We know that dogs actually meaningfully improve mental health, alleviate loneliness.
Service dogs with special training can support people suffering from PTSD, assisting them with daily tasks, such as taking medication and helping to overcome anxiety issues.
You're able to actually come off of medications in some cases.
Although they don't have the same training as service dogs, cats can also be used as emotional support animals and are easier to care for.
They provide a constant friendship for people.
Cats help bring down the stress and anxiety of somebody in a lot of pain.
We project human characteristics onto dogs and cats. For proof, all you have to do is open a book, turn on the TV, or surf the internet. Some of our most iconic pop culture characters are canines and felines.
They have such a special place in our hearts.
It was a 1954 Life magazine article on high rates of illiteracy among children that brought a famously mischievous cat into existence.
Now, reading this article was a publisher from Houghton Mifflin, and he approached a well-known children's author and illustrator at that time, Theodore Geisel, otherwise known as Dr. Seuss. His answer to this problem of illiteracy was The Cat in the Hat.
He spawned an enormous series of books and triggered a love of reading in kids.
The Cat in the Hat is one of those undeniable children's classics. Even now, decades later, sells in the millions.
Among pop culture cartoon canines, Snoopy reigns supreme. This imaginative pooch was created by Charles Schulz in 1950 as part of his iconic Peanuts comic strip.
Snoopy has had so many fun characters. He would dress up and create himself into different personas.
Snoopy is funny because he isn't very much of a dog. He goes ice skating and he imagines that he's a fighter pilot. We just don't know what's going on in a dog's head. For all I know, maybe my dog is imagining that she's a fighter pilot.
To me, it was the Snoopy show, and then there were some humans in the background.
You could argue that canine characters were the dominant furry icons of the 20th century, but the undisputed animal stars of the internet age are cats.
If you've ever spent any time on the internet, I'm sure you've seen a cat at one point or another.
I don't think that YouTube would exist today if it wasn't for cat videos.
Cats were one of the first videos on the internet that went viral.
The New York Times described cat images as an essential building block of the internet. Images, video, and memes of domestic cats make up some of the most viewed content on the web.
My favorite cat on the internet is Grumpy Cat. Whenever I have a bad day and I see a picture of Grumpy Cat, I don't know if it's because I'm transferring my grumpiness to the cat, but it just makes me feel better instantly.
But as our thought experiment begins, some of our best loved characters disappear from pop culture.
Without dogs and cats, we would even have a big void within TV, radio, obviously the internet.
We wouldn't have these animal avatars that we use as substitute humans to tell our stories.
And things get much worse when we remove the love and essential companionship that dogs and cats provide their human families.
here, buddy. Come here, get a treat. Come on.
We didn't evolve independently of these creatures. These creatures evolved with us. They are part of us now.
Millions of people around the world would be left without their close personal companions.
Mike, come on, buddy.
Imagine all the empty dog parks. Imagine all the empty laps.
There'd potentially be quite a lot of mental health problems if we suddenly didn't have pets.
It would be a huge loss if we didn't have them. We'd probably be relying a lot more on pharmaceuticals.
That emotional loss, I think, would be immense. These are friends and family we're talking about. These aren't just pets.
Mike!
To imagine a world without dogs and cats, we're conducting a thought experiment. So far, we have removed the companionship and emotional support they provide this woman.
Come on.
And this young man. People around the world are devastated by the sudden loss of their furry friends and sink into despair. As our story continues, we will look at the important and incredibly diverse jobs we've given to dogs and cats over time.
The first service that dogs provided for us was really being able to put food on the table.
They were our eyes and ears. They could swim. They were agile. They were easy to train.
One of the oldest breeds was the hunting dog of kings for thousands of years.
The Saluki breed of dog has been with us for millennia. They could run at speeds of about 60 kilometers an hour, really efficient predators.
A more modern breed known for its hunting prowess is the Labrador Retriever.
The Labrador Retriever was first discovered on the east coast of Canada, used by fishermen to help bring nets in, but also retrieve waterfowl. They have webbed feet to help them swim, and they have an otter-like tail.
While dogs have long been our preferred hunting partners, cats are even more effective as predators. Sharp, retractable claws inherited from their ancient ancestors gave cats the upper paw when ambushing prey.
Their whole bodies are kind of built for hunting. They need meat to survive. These are not omnivores.
Domestic cats and their big cat cousins are actually much more alike than we might think. Domestic cats and tigers, for instance, share about 95% of their DNA.
Big cats haven't been very good hunting companions because the hunter becomes the hunted.
It is possible for them to see humans as prey, and it's very difficult to tame them.
But in the past, smaller wild cats like the caracal and cheetah have joined humans on the hunt.
Ancient Egyptians, ancient Assyrians would use cheetahs as hunting companions.
Cheetahs are incredibly fast. They are like Porsches. They go at speeds of 120 kilometers per hour. In fact, there was one emperor in India who apparently had 1,000 cheetahs that had been captured from the wild. But they're not very easy to breed in captivity. So that's one of the reasons why we didn't continue hunting with cats.
In the ongoing competition for food, dogs have worked both sides of the fence, helping their masters hunt while also protecting livestock from being killed by other predators. As we will see with this farmer and his herding dog, our food supply would be in danger without them.
They're very protective against things like wolves and coyotes.
Your sheep are sitting ducks, tastier and less able to fend for themselves than wild deer and antelope.
Besides serving as a protector for livestock, dogs can also be trained to herd sheep or cattle, moving them out to the pasture or back to the barn.
Herding breed dogs have been used in place of machinery to actually guide animals and flocks to a location that the herder wants them to be.
These traits were developed through selective breeding. While the dog's natural instinct to treat livestock as food was suppressed, their hunting skills remained.
They're used to being aware and awake and alert, knowing what's going on in their surroundings.
Farm dogs love their jobs, and for centuries, dogs have helped us protect the livestock we rely on for food and commerce. But not all working dogs were held in such high esteem, and some had to endure horrible mistreatment.
The turnspit dog was a corgi-type dog. It was forced to walk on a wheel, set up on a gear system to turn meat on a spit, so it would cook evenly. To get the dog to move, they would throw hot coals at it.
Fortunately, this gruesome story has a silver lining.
In the 1850s, shocked and appalled by the treatment of these turnspit dogs, a man called Henry Bergh founded the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, the ASPCA, which still is running today. What animal rights organizations like the ASPCA have done is really transform the way that we think about animals.
Dogs aren't the only ones who have suffered through bizarre jobs. During the 1960s, the CIA spent $15 million trying to turn our feline friends into Cold War operatives.
You might have heard of the movie Spy Kids. Well, what about spy cats? The CIA tried to develop a cat called the acoustic kitty.
If you happen to have a listening device on a cat, who cares, right? Nobody really thinks of them as being a spy.
They had listening devices implanted in this cat. It actually has a tragic end. The only cat that they trained to do this on its first mission was run over by a taxi.
While spy cats didn't help win the Cold War, sled dogs were essential to our survival in cold climates.
In the far north, at high latitudes, sled dogs were a really important method of transportation.
Dog sleds have been integral to northern indigenous communities for as far back as we know. Having dog sleds was a way to connect communities.
Those dogs were also used by European settlers to move stuff across ice and snow.
Sled dogs were often the only available way to get much-needed supplies to remote communities. They became a critical tool when disease struck the distant town of Nome, Alaska.
In 1925, there was a big diphtheria outbreak in Alaska, and it was really difficult to get medicine to the people who needed it.
This was really impacting the health of the children.
The situation became so dire that the governor approved a daring plan to use a sled relay, consisting of 150 dogs to travel over 1,000 kilometers, battling extreme sub-zero temperatures.
It was quite far away. Typically, the Postal Service would make those runs by dogs. It would take 2 to 3 weeks. After 5 days and 7 hours, they got the serum, they saved the children's lives.
This display of heroism is still honored today with the famous Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race. As we will see with this canine unit heading out for patrol in our thought experiment, dogs play an essential role in keeping our world safe. Dogs have been used for national security and law enforcement for over 100 years.
Dogs started to be used for police work in the 1880s.
The Belgians were the first to train police dogs, and the dogs that were selected were the German Shepherd and the Belgian Malinois.
They get used as police dogs because they're strong, they're smart, and they have an incredible bond with their handlers.
In cities around the world, violent street crime can strike without warning.
Hey! Hey! Stop! Stop! Hey!
Police need to respond quickly to dangerous situations.
Okay.
And canine units play a vital role.
All units, suspect is driving a white sedan. Last seen heading south on Main Street.
Yeah, this is K9. I've spotted the suspect. I'm in pursuit.
Canine units are often called to track down and apprehend individuals who have committed serious crimes.
Criminals may be very agile, but they cannot outrun the dog. The police dog can run 3 to 4 times faster than a human being.
Canine units play a special role in police and military work, one of the many ways that working dogs have become essential. But now, as our thought experiment continues, we remove dogs who have become indispensable workers. Herding and guardian dogs disappear from farms around the world.
Farmers are still so reliant on herding dogs, and without them, life would be so much harder for farmers.
Without dogs, the livestock that we raised for food and that we depended on would have been really easy targets for other predators.
Liddy!
The absence of herding and livestock guard dogs threatens the livelihood of farmers.
Lady!
Shortage of food and goods drive up the price of meat, wool, and other farm products.
Lady!
And with the loss of police dogs, canine units are no longer able to track and capture dangerous criminals.
You take away the police dogs, the consequences of that could be dire in certain circumstances.
Jolt! Criminals who would otherwise have been brought to justice remain free, threatening the safety of society.
We'd be lost in a world without our working dogs. In fact, we'd be crippled without them.
Jolt, come! As we gradually remove different types of dogs and cats and their special characteristics from the world, havoc starts to spread. With the loss of his speedy partner, our canine officer has allowed a dangerous criminal to escape.
Dispatch, this is K9 requesting backup. I've lost the suspect, and I can't see my dog.
And without dogs that help look after livestock, farmers find their livelihood at risk. We rely on dogs and cats for the companionship they provide and the work they do. But our deep relationship extends beyond the physical world. Long regarded as spiritual guides and protectors, we have carved their images into the earth and projected them out to the stars. Ancient civilizations relied on felines and canines to help them navigate life and the afterlife.
Egyptians took cats very seriously. They worshipped them, they would mummify them with the family so they could spend the afterlife with you. They were probably the first civilization who made it illegal to kill a cat.
Examples of Egyptian cat reverence include the iconic Sphinx monument, which features the body of a lion. It is thought to have been created to honor an ancient king. There are also several depictions of Egyptian gods with a feline form.
If you look up to and you love these cats, you can move them into the pantheon of your gods.
Though cats enjoyed reverence in ancient Egypt, in medieval Europe, they developed an association with witchcraft that put them in the doghouse.
There are qualities that cats have that make some people love them, but there are also qualities that in the past have been associated with this darkness. The fact that they are nocturnal.
They blend into the background and peer into your soul.
Their mysterious nature led to the superstitious belief that a black cat crossing your path was a bad omen. This fear of supernatural felines influenced official church policy.
In 1233, Gregory IX, the Pope, issued this decree against cats. Anti-feline sentiment then spread through the church and through the public.
If you own a black cat, you are probably canoodling with the devil.
While superstitions about cats may be unfounded, one thing is for sure: you are always safer with a dog watching over you 24/7.
Having a dog decreases the chance of your house getting broken into.
Breeds commonly used as guard dogs, like the Bull Mastiff, Doberman Pinscher, and Rottweiler, have a natural instinct to protect their home and family. But all types of dogs have the ability to tap into their ferocious nature.
We all think the big dogs are the ones to be feared. Most veterinarians, the breed that actually they fear the most is probably the Chihuahua. We call them land sharks because they will bite without warning.
Dogs have acted as guards and guides for millennia, helping to keep visually impaired people safe from harm when they leave home.
In Pompeii, there is a wall painting that shows a blind man being led by a dog. In 13th century China, we see something similar. So these are old practices, not just in Europe, but all over the world.
The ravages of war gave guide dogs new importance in the 20th century.
We see a rise in the number of sight dogs used around World War I when a lot of soldiers were blinded with mustard gas.
After World War I, formal guide dog training schools started opening around Europe, and then the rest of the world. Dogs allow vision-impaired people like this man to live more independent lives.
Guide dogs really open up opportunities and provide access to the world.
Guide dog associations in 31 countries provide an essential service to many people who are blind or partially sighted.
Dogs do this so well. They are considered literally a replacement for people's ability to see, and they save lives as a result.
One of the most important ways dogs and cats contribute to our survival may come as a surprise. Wild cats and dogs are apex predators. Their position atop the food chain is vital to keep life-sustaining ecosystems functioning.
The apex species, the species that are the predators, the ones that keep the population of the ruminants under control, maintaining a balance is basically what they do.
But as our thought experiment continues, apex predators disappear from the wilderness around the world.
Without them, the herbivores would go unchecked, and then vegetation would be rapidly depleted.
The removal of apex predators triggers a phenomenon known as trophic cascade.
If you knock out that species, it'll have a domino effect and ripple all across the ecosystem.
A broken food chain threatens species across the planet and disrupts processes that maintain the quality of air, water, and soil. And if dogs suddenly lost their ability to safely guide their companions, visually impaired people around the world would lose their independence and be put in mortal danger.
Sir?
In the event that they couldn't do that anymore, lives would be lost.
Watch out! Watch out! Watch out! Are you okay?
In our thought experiment, dogs have lost the ability to guide their owners, leading to accidents and a loss of independence for the visually impaired. The removal of animal companions has left people lonely and depressed in a world that seems ever more threatening. And with the loss of police canine units, criminals who could have been caught are still roaming free, including this domestic terrorist, whose deadly intentions will soon be known. As our thought experiment continues, we'll examine how dogs and cats have contributed to important advances in science and medicine. It was a cat that may have inspired the life work of the great scientist Nikola Tesla.
As a boy, Tesla was fascinated by when he was stroking the back of his cat, these kind of electrical sparks would jump off, what we now know to be static electricity. And that kind of drove him with a passion to investigate what electricity was and to harness it.
Tesla went on to design the alternating current electrical system, which is the predominant electrical system used across the world today.
Alternating current power distribution is the framework upon which our modern power systems are built. Nikola Tesla's invention.
Dogs and cats helped us get out of this world. In the earliest days of space exploration, they played a critical role.
In 1957, a street dog named Laika became the first living creature to be sent into space.
Laika blasted into space in the Russian satellite Sputnik 2 and orbited Earth. Sadly, heat shields failed, and Laika did not survive.
Laika, I would say, is a hero.
Because of that sacrifice, we learned a lot about how to keep humans safe when we finally went up into orbit.
Cats were integral to the study of space travel too. In 1963, it was a Parisian street cat who became the first feline in space.
Not many people have heard of Félicette, who was the French space cat.
Félicette was one of 14 street cats collected for the project.
They ran them through a kiddie astronaut training program. They basically were turning these stray cats into catstronauts.
A really rigorous training program, compression chambers, centrifuges to make sure they could endure the G-force.
Félicette showed she had the right stuff and survived the voyage. But she was euthanized shortly after so scientists could study the effects of space travel on her body.
Without dogs and cats blazing the trail for humans in space exploration, would humans even have the courage to go?
The use of animals in scientific research has become more controversial over the years, and this is especially true of dogs and cats.
These scientific and medical discoveries have really contributed substantially to our knowledge and saved human lives. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge the animals involved.
We're working very hard now in veterinary medicine to look at other alternatives to using animals for research.
One of the biggest medical advances that dogs helped us out with are blood transfusions.
It was carried out in 1666 by Richard Lower. Blood transfusions today are used quite routinely in medical hospitals. In fact, when I gave birth to my son, I was given a blood transfusion, and I'm very sure that I wouldn't be here today without it.
In 1921, Canadian medical scientist Frederick Banting, in collaboration with Charles Best and John McLeod, discovered that pancreatic secretions could be used to keep dogs with diabetic symptoms alive.
Dr. Frederick Banting was studying dogs that had the same symptoms as diabetic humans.
These studies helped Banting and his team isolate insulin for mass production, providing an essential tool for those suffering from diabetes.
Millions of people were saved from this Canadian innovation, and we owe it to the diabetic dogs within the study.
This medical breakthrough was recognized with a Nobel Prize in 1923. It is just one example of how past research on dogs and cats led to innovations that have saved human lives. Outside of the laboratory, one of the main ways felines have promoted human health was through their killer instinct.
Cats have been near human settlements really since we stopped being nomadic and started storing food and grains. Of course, that brought in a lot of rodents.
Cats were the ones who would get rid of that vermin for us, and living in this kind of holistic synergy with humans allows us to have healthy settlements.
To this day, cats have an important role to play in keeping rodent populations under control.
One of the reasons that I have barn cats is for their ability to hunt rodents.
They're keeping mice and rats out of our food supply. And they're protecting our health because a lot of those rodents will carry diseases with them.
The ongoing rat problem plaguing large cities has led some to enlist an army of feline foot soldiers.
Chicago came up with a really innovative program called Cats at Work.
The Cats at Work project is supervised by Chicago Humane Society that maintains 650 outdoor cat colonies comprised of 3,600 feral cats.
Instead of eliminating their feral cat colonies, they're actually using them to fight off pests. They'll move cats into an area that is having a rodent infestation.
Once the rats get a whiff of the cat pheromones, they know to take off.
Many Chicago residents and businesses who have participated in the Cats at Work program claim it is a great long-term solution to the city's rat problem. But now, as our thought experiment continues, we remove domestic cats as predators, allowing the world's rodent population to spiral out of control.
Towns and cities would be overrun with rodents.
That would have real repercussions. It's those vermin that really damage food supplies.
Mice and rats become dangerous vectors for disease.
They carry illness that is going to affect a lot of humans.
Rodents can transmit disease directly, but also by spreading the parasites they carry.
We'd just be inundated by rodents.
Without cats to keep them in check, vermin infiltrate our homes. And the terror is just beginning. In our thought experiment, we've been exploring how the loss of dogs and cats could bring chaos to the world. Hordes of rodents infiltrate our homes, farms, and markets, consume food, and spread disease. Valuable livestock are left vulnerable to attack. And with the loss of police canine units, this domestic terrorist is still roaming free. Having eluded capture, he proceeds with his murderous plot. As our story continues, we're going to explore the super senses of dogs and cats and find out how they can save lives. The sensory abilities of dogs and cats surpass our own in many ways.
Both dogs and cats have much better night vision than humans.
Cats can pick up even the slightest movement in low light. They can even see in the ultraviolet part of the spectrum, which humans can't.
Dogs have a different flicker fusion rate than humans. We see at about 60 frames per second. Dogs see faster than 60 frames per second, and so they actually process information faster than us.
And when it comes to hearing, dogs and cats have a sound advantage over humans.
Dogs have 18 muscles in their ears, so they have much better control over how they move their ears, and they can hear frequencies up to 45,000 hertz.
By comparison, humans can hear frequencies of up to 20,000 hertz, but that doesn't even come close to the auditory ability of cats.
Cats have 32 muscles in their ears. They can actually rotate them by 180 degrees.
They have these beautiful built-in satellite dishes that can pick up sounds and focus them into their ear canals.
Cats top both humans and dogs with the ability to hear up to 64,000 hertz.
So if you've ever called your cat and it doesn't come running, don't worry, it can still hear you, it's just choosing not to listen.
But where cats and dogs really outclass humans is with their sense of smell.
The average cat has up to 200 million scent receptors, 40 times better than the human nose.
With up to 300 million scent receptors, dogs like the bloodhound can smell 60 times better than humans. This allows them to detect very small concentrations of an odor, around 1 part per trillion. That's like sniffing out a half teaspoon of sugar in an Olympic-sized swimming pool.
We as primates are really visual animals, whereas dogs see the world very differently. Arguably, their primary sense is scent. When something is obvious to us, we say that it's in plain sight. But it's not in plain sight to the dog, it's in plain scent.
This alternative perception of the world allows dogs and their handlers to become very effective search and rescue teams.
The sense of smell that dogs have is so powerful that when it comes to humans, they can pick up things as subtle as sweat. They can even pick up the smell of skin rafts.
Skin rafts are a unique combination of materials that fall from our bodies, including dead skin cells, hygiene products, bacteria, sweat, hormones, and enzymes.
Because every individual has a different set of skin rafts with its own particular odor, for a dog, that is almost like a fingerprint. They can track down people in water, in rubble, even in deep snow.
Some search and rescue dogs have become famous for their heroics. In 2017, a 7.1 magnitude earthquake devastated central Mexico. Rescue workers called in their secret weapon, a Labrador retriever named Frida. As a member of the Mexican Navy's Canine Unit, it was Frida's job to sniff out people trapped by natural disasters.
Multiple people were saved by Frida. She worked for a decade saving people from earthquakes, from fires, and also with body recovery.
Frida retired in 2019 as a celebrated hero. A more recent application of incredibly sensitive dog snouts is in the field of medical detection, where dogs are trained to sniff out various forms of illness.
Dogs are trained to detect changes in sugar levels, picking up ketoacidosis in diabetic individuals.
And that's important for a sufferer of diabetes, and they can alert them early, then that person can take action straight away.
We are only beginning to realize the untapped potential of these powerful noses to improve our lives. Detection dogs at airports can help find and seize smuggled goods like banned animal byproducts and illegal opioids, which are contributing to an epidemic of deaths in North America.
In the US alone, there's hundreds of dogs that are working at the airport to help keep us all safe.
Our four-legged friend's keen sense of smell also saves lives on the battlefield. During World War I, dogs and cats lived alongside soldiers in the trenches. These brave mascots not only raised morale in brutal conditions, they were also trained to sniff out rats and could even alert their comrades to incoming gas attacks. Today, military dogs are almost exclusively devoted to sniffing out dangerous explosives.
The ability that dogs have in sniffing out things like bombs or ammunitions is something that humans cannot even begin to fathom.
Explosive detection canines are also invaluable away from the battlefield. After receiving a tip from workers at the nuclear power plant, the bomb squad has arrived with their best weapon.
Get the dog.
Improvised explosive devices, or IEDs, cause terrorism throughout the world, cause death.
When searching a building for an explosive device, every second counts. The acute sending ability of explosive detection canines allows them to cover more ground faster than any human or machine possibly could.
They're trained to detect the chemicals in the explosives so that they can alert their handlers that there's a danger nearby.
But as we reach the conclusion of our thought experiment, dogs' amazing sense of smell is erased. As a result, a troubled and frightening world becomes downright deadly.
We lose their ability to help us in search and rescue efforts.
If you're in an emergency situation, dogs can sniff out people, even in the deepest rubble.
The loss of a search and rescue dog's efficient tracking ability means family members will be separated, and preventable deaths will occur.
If you ever lose your kid, you want to live in a world that has dogs so they can help us find them.
And if explosive detection canines suddenly lost their sense of smell, they would become confused and unable to carry out their duties.
How many more casualties would we have without these bomb-sniffing dogs?
Unable to recognize chemical scents, dogs would be working blind, with potentially fatal consequences.
He's never done this before. Something isn't right. Get out! Get...
Today in our thought experiment, the world has suffered greatly from the loss of dogs and cats. But our thought experiment is over. Luckily for us, all the important contributions dogs and cats make to our lives are restored. The canine unit got their man before he could carry out his terror plot.
Good boy.
The sheep are being well looked after on the farm. And the companionship of beloved friends is restored.
Good boy.
Now we look to what possibilities lie ahead in the future.
Such a good boy.
Medical Detection Dogs is a British charity that trains dogs to be able to identify those signatures of certain diseases. They've already been trained to detect things like malaria, Parkinson's, even certain types of cancer.
Specialist sniffer dogs are now being tested to see if they can detect COVID-19.
Maybe our dogs that they're training to pick up COVID-19 will do a much better and a quicker job for us.
Trials are being planned with Durham University and the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine.
Instead of having that swab, stuck halfway down your nose, imagine if we had dogs in the airport screening travelers.
And wouldn't that be an enormous game changer for medical diagnosis?
In the past, many injuries suffered by pet dogs and cats would result in euthanization. Now, an innovative technique is preventing such hardships.
In 2010, a cat called Oscar lost his 2 hind legs in an accident with a combine harvester. The very innovative vet called Noel Fitzpatrick fitted 2 prosthetic legs to this cat.
They developed a new technique where the prosthetics actually get fused to the bones.
The operation on Oscar, known as intraosseous transcutaneous amputation prosthetics, or ITAP for short, was completely successful. It became, in effect, then, the world's very first bionic cat.
Using Oscar the cat's bionic techniques on people would really improve the quality of life of amputees.
Dogs and cats are inspiring the creation of pet robots.
A robotics company named Boston Dynamics recently developed a robotic dog that they called Spot, appropriately.
With a wide range of abilities, this 4-legged robot might one day allow humans to avoid dangerous tasks, like inspecting hazardous areas and defusing bombs. It's clear that dogs and cats are destined to be our friends, companions, and even our work colleagues long into the future.
Even more than maybe previously, dogs and cats provide a physical, social, and emotional presence that we could really relate to.
They really are, as far as humans are concerned, the most indispensable creatures on the planet.
I think dogs and cats are going to be with us for a long, long time to come, and that's because we have an unbreakable bond.
Good boy. Job done.
In many ways, I think dogs and cats make us better human beings.